up to be a signed up to be an airborne ranger. He said, "Oh man, what'd you do that for?" I said, "Oh, what did I do?" But of course, I'm too stubborn to quit once I start anything, and so I did service as the third battalion there at Fort Bend in Georgia, and then once I got out of the military, I sold insurance for a number of years. The company that I was working with ultimately moved me to Tennessee. And then when I got here to Tennessee, I started asking questions. I'm in my early 20s. I started asking questions. Hey, you guys have moved me twice now to help, new agents open up offices. When is Charles going to get an opportunity to run an office? That kind of thing. And they were telling me, "Oh, you're too young." All this stuff sounded like excuses to me. Anyway, I had a GI Bill in my back pocket, and Austin Peay State University was right down the street. And so I decided to hang up my rate book and go to school while I was working at nights. So I went to Austin Peay, studied economics to start off with. And then, when you get into undergrad and you're taking your business courses, you have to take, accounting 101. I get into accounting 101 and the guy says, "Oh, you're pretty good at this. You ought to take this up as a major." Sure. So I picked that up, get into one of my finance classes. The guy says, "Oh, you're pretty good. You ought to pick this up as a major." I said, "Sure." So at one point I had 3 majors when I was in undergrad. And it was a good thing because the upper division econ teacher at Austin Peay at the time ultimately ended up leaving Austin Peay to go to another school. So I ended up graduating from Austin Peay with majors in finance and accounting. Because if I did not get into law school, because I knew I wanted to go to law school when I ultimately did go to undergrad. If I didn't get into law school, CPA was going to be my backup plan. But got into law school. University of Tennessee is where I went. Every year while I was there, I summered working at law firms. Again, I didn't start school until undergrad until 25 or so. So I was and I raised a family the whole time I was going through. So I was a little bit, I guess, older and had a bit more focus on. And so while the firms were whining and dining and swiping cards, I'm looking at the first year associates behind us, and I'm like, "Man, no, this ain't what I want to do." Because those guys just didn't look like they were happy. And I knew whatever it is that I wanted to do, I was going to, want to enjoy it. And so ultimately went through all 3 years of school, talked to the attorney that happened to be a Black attorney that was the general counsel for Austin Peay, and told him, what I was looking to do. And he says, "Hey, man, the IRS is hiring." I said, "Hiring for what?" "Revenue agents." Man, I'm getting ready to go to law school. I'm going through law school, getting ready to take the bar exam. What that got to do with what I'm doing? Well, he explained to me that revenue agents essentially are, they don't call them, practicing law, but what they do was akin to practicing law. Revenue agents, people who are essentially accountants at the Internal Revenue Service, go out and they collect facts from taxpayers, and then they write reports applying those facts to the tax law. I was like, that is the practice of law, but they don't call it that. But that's exactly what's going on. They're the judge, jury, and executioner. They get to work their own cases, and that's what they do. And so I took the job at the Internal Revenue Service, which is what brought me back here to Nashville from Knoxville, and worked with the service I planned on doing their 2-year program. I knew I didn't want to work there forever. I started there. When I got to the end of my first year training, somebody that was supposed to be training me in my next phase of training came to me and asked me a tax law question. And, because I've got a law degree showing up at the Internal Revenue Service and accounting. So they paid me at the highest rate level so that they could when I came off the streets, which was grade 11. You have to then start competing for the next grades after that. This is 2009, so the economy was just great. You remember how great the economy was. I'm being Facetious. The
Sarcastic,
economy
yeah.
wasn't the economy
Yeah, the
wasn't great.
economy was tanked. Well, wait,
Economy.
wait, so you went to work at the IRS, but you hadn't finished law school yet, right?
No, I had finished law school. I
Oh,
finished
you
law school
finished
in
law school. Okay.
2008. Yeah, I finished
Now,
law school in 2008,
okay,
and
okay.
and passed and took the bar. And so I was in Knoxville. I piled in my garage for 3 4 months. Took I had a window in my garage, which seems weird now, but I had a window in my garage. I put an air conditioner in that window, and just studied, gained as much weight as I've been the heaviest time when I was studying for the bar. I didn't do anything but study it because I was doing that one time. So I took the bar. I didn't know whether I passed or not. And then I had already put the application into the Internal Revenue Service because I was having those discussions pre-graduation
Right.
about what was I going to do post-graduation. And so I put the application into the service. And then lo and behold, just as soon as I'm done with the bar exam, somebody calls me up from the service and says, "Hey, you put an application in over here at the Internal Revenue Service. Do you still want to work?" Sure, not doing anything else at the time. And like I said, I had a family to take care of.
Well,
Uh,
let me jump in because I don't we don't have too much time today. I don't
okay, go
want
for it.
I appreciate the whole story. But the abbreviated version works well too. I just want to make sure we get to what you do in terms of your specialty.
Yeah.
So we were here to talk about it like estate planning. Now, do you work with family estates? Is that kind of like is that the primary part of your practice, or is that like a piece of what you do, or
Yeah, it's I do half and half. So I do half tax, half estate planning, but both of them are related. There is a lot of people who serious estate planners know bunches about tax. So you can get a lot of attorneys who will do wills for you. They're really document preparation professionals, if you will. And if they don't know the tax stuff, then they're really not helping you plan. And so I do both the tax half, so I do tax planning and tax controversy because of my tax background. And then I do estate planning and probate work. And so that's what I do now. And so I'm just in those two areas. I don't do anything else outside of those two areas. Of course, when I first started, I did criminal law and family law because I had to eat. I had to, eat. But after I gained a enough of a reputation in the community and people started coming to me, then I was able to just focus on those two practice areas. So
okay?
yeah, that's
So
primarily what I do now.
well, it's interesting. They have that saying that, like, what is it? The only things that are guaranteed are death and taxes. So it seems like you have expertise in both of those areas. Um, why is it important to really think about tax implications of, of your estate plan or if you have one or not? And just, I mean, it seems like, it seems like there's so many ways that people get financially wiped out, either on their way out or after they're gone. I think about like what medical expenses do on the way out, like you're on the slow decline. And my wife works in hospice and she talks about families that have to come up with $25,000 a month to care for a loved one who doesn't even remember who they are because maybe they got Alzheimer's or something like that,
Mhm.
and and then when you die, it seems like that, if everything's not structured, the IRS just comes in and just wipes away anything that you thought might have become generational wealth. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So to the first issue about folks planning and why that's important from a tax perspective. I mean, there's just so many things that I mean, I get clients who come in all the time and they have these do-it-yourself ideas about about putting. I'm going to put my daughter's name on my deed. Yeah, that might seem like a good idea for a do-it-yourself plan, but it's not optimal from a capital gains tax basis, because when you pass property by way of death, you get a step up in basis. When you pass property by way of a gift, all of the tax attributes go with the gift because you control that action while you're alive. You say to someone, "Hey, I'm just going to give you the property And so now all of the tax attributes go with that. So if mama paid $5,000 for her house when you could buy a house for $5,000 back in the day, um, and she gave it to you before she died, well, when you go sell that house for $100,000, there's now $95,000 exposed to capital gains.
Ooh,
Whereas if mama would have just passed away and gave you that house, you now take it at $100,000 on the date of her death. So all the
mm,
capital gains just goes poof.
wow.
It disappears. And so that's just one way that people, with planning from a tax perspective, that's important. You were talking about some of the issues around elder law. Elder law is the practice of law that focuses on issues around people when they need Medicaid, access to Medicaid resources. Our system is set up really bad in the way that if you're broke and you're poor and you don't do well in life and you don't set up if you don't have anything set up, you walk right into a long-term care facility and they care for you and Medicaid pays the bill. And they don't have any, and there's no worries for that family because that person didn't have anything to leave in the first place. Whereas
Mm,
if you did well for yourself and you accumulated assets, the Medicaid rules require you to spend down and dissipate your assets or use those assets to pay for the care that you need. What? What?
wow. Wow.
Why is the system set up that way? Um,
Mm,
it is. So, even though you paid into the system, just like the person who wasn't fiscally responsible for themselves their entire lives, they got a bigger benefit during the end of their lives, even though they probably, I mean, their lives didn't, their lives wasn't, they couldn't do all the things that you could do because you saved your money and you are able to, at the drop of a hat, go on a vacation, buy whatever it is that you want because you were fiscally responsible. But then when it came time to, in your last years, now you're at this place where you have to make this decision. Do I pay for my final years of care with all of my assets versus trying to hold on and preserve some of this stuff to pass on to the next generation? And really, if you don't do planning ahead of time, you really have no choice. You don't
mm,
have a choice. So there's um, two um, regimes, if you will, or paradigms in Medicaid asset protection planning. There's crisis planning, and then there's proactive planning. In the proactive planning, you can use instruments called Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. And so then if you just think of these as treasure chests, and so then you can start stuffing your property away in these treasure chests. And the trick is, so long as you put the stuff in the treasure chest more than 5 years before you go fill out that Medicaid application, all the stuff in the treasure chest is safe. Because there's a question on the Medicaid application that says, have you transferred anything for less than fair market value within the last 60 months? And if it was 60 months and 1 day ago, the answer to that question is no, even though you have a treasure chest sitting over there full of your stuff.
mm. Yeah,
Um,
that's so interesting you talk about that because I was talking to my friend this morning actually, and she was planning, these funerals and everything. And I said, it's interesting that death planning is something that we have such a hard time doing. And we've kind of talked about this, and I'm sure you've had a lot of discussions on this. And I said, I had to really push myself to stop thinking about transition planning in a negative light. I began to think of it as an extension of my life, like this sort of a continuity planning. Just like, okay, like almost like building a business. If you build a business, you want that business to survive and to sustain itself. And to me, your legacy is kind of like that business, right? Your family is kind of like that business. And it really does require a shift in thinking because you just think about this crazy idea that we almost act like we're never going to die. even though all the evidence is to the contrary, if you ask anybody, are you going to live forever? They're going to say no. But we live as if that day's never going to happen. And then it's always like a surprise. And then next thing you know, everything's in chaos. And I'd say, I wonder if people can even imagine, like, what if you just drop dead right now and you can't go back and you can't tell your spouse, where the keys are. You can't give the password to your son. You can't go back and, fill out one more document, and then people are just scrambling through all your private stuff, every private thing you've ever owned.
Hmm.
Now it's community property kind of, in a way, not completely, but you know what I mean. Like it's just there, right? And people have to go through all your private stuff to try to find, things that you could have easily given to them just like that. Like there's so much private information we have about our lives that no
Hmm.
one else is privy to. And I think, and I'm guilty of that, and I just wondered, like, just that line of thinking, how do you even get out of that? What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, ultimately, just making people aware of the issue. I especially like to talk to my business owner clients when they come in to ask them exactly those questions. The first line of question that I start with is, "Hey, what all do you do in your business?" And they go on this, big diatribe about all the stuff that it takes to be a business owner and all the parts and roles that they feel in their particular business. I says, okay, well, and we talk about it in two phases. We talk about it if they were, incapacitated, and then we talk about it if they were to die. I says, okay, well, if you become incapacitated so much so that you cannot do any of those things, how would your business survive?
Whew.
And then I just sit there and I'm quiet.
That's a
And then
terrible question.
and then you see the bewilderment on their face, and they're like, Uh, and I said, okay, let's take this one step further. Let's take this one step further. Should you pass away, how is the value that you built in this particular property going to get out of that asset and to your family? How is that going to happen?
Oh
So,
Lord.
so I don't go in and give them a whole bunch of just start throwing solutions at them. I just ask them those questions. And then all of a sudden they realize, I think I got Houston, I think we have a problem. Houston, I think we have a problem. And then we start to work through it. I mean, and so then the solutions there, one is a contingency plan. The contingency plan just says, okay, look around you. There are people around you that can do the parts and pieces that comprise all of the stuff that you do. And you just have to be sure that you make those assignments before you pass away. You have to put all of them before you become incapacitated. You have to put all of that in writing. So that's a contingency plan. And then for your business succession plan, you have to then decide, how do I want to exit this business? You're going to exit your business one day. We have giant stopwatches in our chest. They are designed to stop. They don't continue forever.
Mm.
They will stop one day. The question is when, not if. and and none of us are going to take any of this stuff that we accumulate while we're here with us. We all probably pull over when we see funeral processionals come down the road, especially here in the South. And I don't think any of you have ever seen a U-Haul at the end of that processional. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. The only people that have tried to take all the stuff with them are the Egyptians, and that just got them robbed. So, I mean, again, we have to understand that these are real issues, and you can, through planning, just give your family just an amazing gift of knowledge, power, you know, reduce, the purpose and point of my office is to reduce the anxiety, fear, and confusion around the issues of death and taxes. That's it.
Wow.
Because there's just so much of all of that around the stuff that I do.
Wow. Well, you know what? I love that, Attorney Frazier, and I think just those sobering questions. What you did with those questions, and I hope everybody was paying attention, is you encouraged what we refer to as a financial consciousness exercise. Where you just kind of have this wake up call, like, wait, oh my gosh, well, if I'm not here, how is all this stuff going to get done? And it's a really hard thing to do, because we're so used, we carry so much on our backs. Imagine like even a single parent, even somebody who doesn't run a business. You think about a single parent, all the stuff you have inside your head that no one else knows, all the things you have going on, all the pots you have on the stove, and business owners, all of that, right? Fathers, everyone. And I think it really almost speaks to just sort of considering a renewed commitment to just documentation, maybe like just really getting in the habit of like of sharing and writing down key parts of your life. One thing I did with my wife that again, it's not, I still, even I have work to do in this area. All of us do, I think. But I remember saying to my wife, I said, okay, there's a black bag in my office. If something ever happens to me, go in that black bag. At least right there, you'll find a lot of information that will help the transition. But even then, there's still a lot of other stuff that I know that I can do and no one else can do. And so a lot of that just gets lost, if a key person is not here. So it almost speaks to if you're talking about sort of just looking specifically at the family and the value of our families.
Mhm.
Um, maybe that's something that we can discuss even in this space that I want to encourage everybody to kind of hear. And then I'd like for Attorney Frazier to elaborate on this is maybe we just sort of decide, like as part of our financial journey, to get in the habit of documenting things. Maybe sit down for just an hour and try to think about all the things that matter, the things that you would want people to know if you weren't here, and writing that down, getting all that down, maybe in an email that you send to some relatives to at least start off with, and then of course formalize that eventually into estate plans and all that stuff. But just that email can make a big difference in terms of people just knowing where things are and what to do next and all that stuff. What do you think about some of that, Attorney Frazier?
Yeah, I mean, there's entire industries around this. I mean, I don't, not getting a kickback for any of these suggestions, but there's this one company called the Knockbox, and they spell it kind of funny. I think it's Nox or Knox and it Box. But all it is a filing system where people have said, okay, what are all of the key categories? They've got a filing system where they set up all the key categories of life, and then you just go about filling the thing in so that when somebody finds this box after you've passed away, they've got your treasure chest of information. They've got electronic versions of that same thing. There's this one company called My Life, My Wishes. I mean, there's just so many of these companies out here that have these resources that give you the ability to, without having to send, because people, especially in our community, we're just private. You don't really want to share all of your stuff with everybody right now, potentially, but maybe you don't have to. Maybe you have this knockbox. Maybe you have a password to this particular online version of your Knoxbox, in a drawer, in your nightstand. Whenever I put estate plans together for people, there's one part of the document in there that one of the documents in the estate plan portfolio that has a place where the client can write on there where the originals of the documents are kept and who has copies. And I instruct the clients to write there, fill that piece of the form in, fold it up, make a copy of it, fold it up, and put it in their nightstand or put it amongst their other important papers. And then take that in an estate plan portfolio that I prepared for them and put it in a fireproof safe or in a safety deposit box at a bank, so that their documents are safe. And again, these are really important issues. You were talking about bringing this down to the family level. A lot of my clients are mothers, single mothers, and it's all about what's going to happen to my kids if I get into an accident and I can't either from a incapacity standpoint be a mom or a death standpoint be a mom. And that question may seem very easy to answer, but you really have to do some, thinking about that. Who's going to love your kid like you love their kid? So then you make that nomination. So there's a big difference between you're naming someone to do that and a court appointing someone to do that. Court appointing someone to do that doesn't know the people that they're appointing to do that. Those people just showed up at the court. Why did they show up at the court? Well, if you had any coin, maybe they loved your coin more than they love your kid. I hope that's not the case. But if it is, that's not a situation you want your kid to find themselves in because of your lack of planning. So you can identify the people that would love your kid like you love your kid. And you can name guardians for your children in your estate planning documents. You can then ask the question, is that person that I'm naming as the guardian of my child good with money? Because all people aren't good with money. They may be great with the kids. They might be good with kids because they want to go buy all the candy and go to Disney World. They have no financial acumen whatsoever. So now you need a team. Now you need someone to care for the money that you might leave behind so that they can work with the person that you left to care for your kid. So now you've put a village together to care for your kid in your absence. So again, all of this stuff is again, this is planning. This is not what you're going to get on LegalZoom. This is not what you're going to get on, again, the attorney who knows how to fill out a form in his computer, but has no idea about, tax issues or all of this stuff from, the fact that I work in probate and I do estate planning, I get to see all of the ugly stuff that comes up in probate. And then that it really informs how I plan for my clients. So I get to say, ooh, how could I, when I see bad stuff happening in probate, I say, how can I avoid that in my planning documents? And I do my best to help my clients avoid those things in the planning documents. I am licensed in Texas.
Well, I like that a lot because I think that it's important. If you care about generational wealth, you have to talk about you have to have these conversations. And I think these are conversations that are not always fun to have. And they're sometimes they can even feel dry for some of us. But when you think about the implications of that, right? You think about as I was talking to my friend about that this morning, and I said, really think about this, right? I said, your daughter is in her teens. She'll be around probably in the year 2070, 2080. And her grandkids will be around in the year 2150, 2160. And I said, so the things that you do or don't do right now are going to literally affect other people for 150 years, right? Like, I mean, the impact. And if you think about just what happens when somebody just makes one little smart decision and has that discipline to show love, like to show economic love. Like, I really think that estate planning really is love. You're really showing the people that are in your family that you love them because you're like, I made a plan for you. I want your life to be better. Just like I'm feeding you when you come to my house on Sundays, I'm also going to economically feed you to make sure you can feed yourself so that you're going to be okay. And I think that we have to have that serious conversation because I don't know if we've had that discussion enough, right? You just hear about so many scenarios where it's like, okay, you've got kids and you didn't even make any kind of a plan for the kids. The kids are now in a terrible situation. And the thing is that there's opportunities everywhere. Like even today I was, or yes, the other day I was looking back at 1996 because that was an interesting year for me. And people don't know this. Right now, the Jones Industrial Average is over 40,000. But back then it had just crossed 7,000, right? Just seven. I mean, and that was a big deal. That was headline news. The Dow's at 7,000. Woo! And I just thought about it. I said, "Oh my Lord!" Like, so anybody who just took their spare change and just bought, a few shares of stock every week back in '96, would have just a boatload of money right now. Like so these opportunities kind of float right past us. And I think it's important to kind of stop and say, let's put some time into those opportunities. Because if you think about it, we get up and we go to work every day like nobody else. Like we will do, if we get a job, we will put our heart and soul into that job, make a plan for that job, study 4 years to get that job. But the question is, when it comes to your family and the institution that you own, are you putting that same amount of energy into that institution that you're putting into somebody else's? Right? Are you putting the same amount of energy, planning, and preparation into that institution called your family, your legacy, as you're putting into your job at UPS, IBM, Amazon, or whatever? And I think the answer is no. I mean, we will work really hard. And in fact, last thing I'm gonna say on this, man, I just thought about this. And I'll let you get the last word, brother. Because and by the way, Attorney Frazier is going to be our visitor in our Legacy Investors for Tomorrow program. We have an estate planning club. If you want to join, you can go to drboycelift.com, L-I-F-T, drboycelift.com, and you can use a code to get the first 30 days free. The code is free morning, all one word, free morning. So put in the code free morning and you can join. And there's a whole curriculum there. There's a lot of trainings there from guest speakers, things like that. So feel free to go to drboycelift.com, L-I-F-T, and use the code word free morning, all one word. Last thing I'm gonna say on this, Attorney Frazier, and I want you to get the last word, is I thought about this, right? And this is something that just hit me like a brick. I thought about all my friends, all of my bougie professional friends like me and you, where we got all our fancy degrees and and we got our special important jobs and all these things that make us proud, right? All these things that make us say, look at me, I'm successful, mama, I made it, all that, right? And I thought about the sacrifice that so many of us make, right? I know people that don't have a family because they sacrifice so much for their career. Career was everything, right? So then you're 50, you've got this amazing career, this really nice position somewhere at some company, but everything else is not there, right? The husband or the wife is not there, the kids aren't there, like it's you and your job, and that's it. And I thought about how, in some cases, I feel like we're almost trained to take more pride in being a middle manager at a white-owned business than we take pride in being the head of like a black family, right? And this is not to shame anybody that didn't choose family. I'm just saying that I had to train myself to say that there's no job that someone can give me that is more important than the job I have of being the head of a household with my last name attached to that damn thing. Like that's my business, that's my institution, that's where the bulk of my energy must go instead of thinking like, oh, well, I'm a middle manager at some company or I've got this important job or whatever. To hell with that. Like I really think those things are important, sure, but that family piece and that which ties into what you do, right? Legacy planning, continuity planning, making sure all this hard work I put in all these years doesn't go to waste. That's critical. I know
Yes.
I was long winded in my statement, and I'll let you get the last word. What are your thoughts on some of that?
I mean, I think it's absolutely critical the focus on family. I think ownership is also very important. But, whenever I was opening up and thought you wanted the long-winded version of my background, um, I told you that I saw some of the first year associates that were hired the year before I was summering at those firms, those large firms that I was working at as a summer associate. And I looked around the corner and I saw some of those individuals and they just did not look happy to me. Um, And so I made a decision even before making it out of law school that I was not going to be the person that made, multiple six figures and didn't have a life. That just wasn't going to be my story. I just knew that that wasn't what I wanted to do. I mean, I like money, but not that much to give up my life for it. And then the other thing that I wanted to do um, I didn't want to be under someone else's thumb at one of the larger firms, waiting for them to tell me when I might be good enough to be a partner at their firm. What? Who what? So that wasn't also going to be part of my. Now, has it been easy to come out? So again, I'm a transplant to Tennessee. I didn't know anybody when I came here. Um, and decided, in 2009 that I was going to leave the Internal Revenue Service and start a law firm. Um, that's unheard of. But it took a measure of faith. It said, okay, look, I want to build something because I want to have something that's more than just my last paycheck when I die, because a lot of times that's all people have. They have their last paycheck when they die, and that retirement account that they built up at that job over their 30 years that they gave that company. Um, I'll say this last thing. I was looking at a podcast yesterday, and the subject was on Joy Reid being let go from MSNBC, and how we as a people don't have to work at those big companies. How she's talented enough to set up her own thing and lend her voice to us, her people, and give us her perspective on what's going on in the world. And again, the author of that podcast was making the point um, that far too many of us lean too much on the MSNBCs, the Goldman Sachs, the big companies. I could easily go and put an application over here at Bass, Berry, Sims, or whatever the big firms are downtown, and they'd gladly have me. Nope, not doing it. I'm gonna stay over here at Fraser Law, and um, hopefully by the time my stopwatch stops, I can leave the legacy of my name on the front door of a building, hopefully the Batman building downtown Nashville, maybe on the top of that bad boy, Fraser, still hanging out up there. And I've long gone. Um, just like we all understand and know who Johnny Cochran is. He owned that. We have to own, and we have to, as a part of ownership, get the benefit of being able to take care of our families when we want to take care of our families, not when somebody else says it's okay for us to take care of our families.
Mm. Well, you can't pass a job down to your children. So, but yeah, I encourage everybody to get something you can pass to your kids. At least pass them some Bitcoin or something. I mean, remember you don't have to be an entrepreneur in order to own something, right? And I think ownership is one of the great lessons we can grab from this conversation. So, everybody type the word ownership in the chat. Ownership. We want to own. You got to own something. You own some shares of stock. You can pass that down. Own some crypto. Own some real estate. Right? You don't have to necessarily go start a business if that's not what you want to do. That's not for everybody. But you got to own something. Ownership. 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 That has to be our mantra for this generation and beyond. And that way, even if you got your black job and you like it, if you like your job, I'm not here to tell you to quit your job. That might be a good source of cash flow for you, and do that. But own something, because if you don't own something, then somebody's going to own you. And I know a lot of y'all own Bitcoin and crypto, and y'all saw what happened to the crypto last night. Crypto went crazy. So congratulations to all the crypto owners in here. Well, I want to say thank you very much, Attorney Frazier. And also I want to mention really quickly, Attorney Frazier is going to be our guest. I'm going to give him the floor. tomorrow night in our estate planning club. And so if you guys want to join and ask Attorney Frazier questions and talk to him and hear his presentation, as you can see, he's very knowledgeable. In the Black Business School, our goal is to highlight the smartest, best, and brightest in our community, so that we can educate ourselves and build our community to what we want it to be. So if you want to join our Legacy Investors for Tomorrow group, just go to drboycelift.com, Lift, drboycelift.com. If you want 30 days free, use the code word free morning, not free money. Somebody wrote free money. It's free morning. It's free money. I want you to get that too, but it's free morning. And that's because the members of Money in the Morning are being offered this opportunity. So drboycelift.com, code word is free morning, all one word. I want to say thank you very much, Attorney Frazier, brother. It was great to meet you, man. And
Same
I look
here.
forward to meeting you in person. So when I come down to Nashville, man, I'd love to take you to lunch or something, just talk to you face to face.
Oh yeah, I mean, I still got family up north, so next time I'm planning on heading that way, I'll hit you up, and hopefully we can meet up as well.
Right on. I love it. I love it. So everybody go look up Frazier Law. Apparently this brother knows what he's doing. He's good at what he does. And our meeting with it's apparently a long time coming. And I'm really excited. I just really think it's awesome to just see how many smart people we have in our community that are just doing amazing things. And we got to pick our own superheroes. Attorney Frazier is my hero, and I really think that we have so many other people out here that are just doing the damn thing. And unfortunately, you don't get the attention you deserve because you're not a rapper, you're not an actor, you're not a basketball player, you're not a comedian. But I want to give a shout out to all of you that are doing the work, doing the heavy lifting that's really going to elevate our community, because you are the secret sauce. You are the talented 10th. You are the ones that are going to get us to the next level. So keep on pushing. Never give up. God bless you. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful night. And